I'm going to read a territorial acknowledgement. On behalf of the Games Institute, I would like to acknowledge the enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge, laws, and philosophies of the Indigenous peoples with whom we share this land today. The land on which we work and live is the land traditionally used by the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. I recognize, and we recognize, that the University of Waterloo is situated on the Haldimand Tract, which is the land promised to the Six Nations that includes 10 kilometers on each side of the Grand River. Thank you for being here. I'm Marisa Benjamin. I'm the Research Communications Officer at the Games Institute. So I had a hand in doing this, but truly it was a communal effort, and we're so excited that this day is here. We've been looking forward to it for about 2 months now, 3 months, I don't know. So I will hand it over to AC, but expect to see me up here a little bit later, giving you a little bit more context about the Games Institute itself. Before AC does their talk about the design process. So in the meantime, enjoy the tournament. And if you have any questions about the Games Institute and you can't wait until I'm back here at 6, find me or Pam at the back. Agata is there, Kanita is there. There's a bunch of people who can talk to you. So AC, take it away.
So I'll have the document here so you can see what I'm going to talk about. First of all, hi, I'm AC, and that is Captain's Gambit. So this is going to be a tournament style thing that we'll be doing. So I will explain the game, you're going to play the game, and then the people who do the best get to take home one of those paper copies with you. There's one super cool prototype that will be going to Breakout Con, but all of the other printed copies you'll get to just have. The best players will get it. So how the tournament format is going to work is each captain is worth a different number of points. Some captains are easier than others, for example. So if you win with Puck, then you'll get 15 points. If you win with Cordelia, you'll get 10 points, that kind of thing. All you really need to know is you should try to win, and then you will be good. Once you do win, remember there can be multiple winners at a table with a certain game. So everyone who wins, tell one of us, so me, Pam, Kanita, or Marisa. Oh, hi. And then we'll record your name so we can have a good tally of how people are doing. There's some tiebreakers, whoever won more points in the second round. So the second round is a little bit more important than the first. And if there's still a tiebreaker, then whoever's birthday is closest. Okay, so after this, there's going to be a designer talk. The way the designer talk works is while you're playing, you will write down questions on those papers over there, and then I will read them and then answer them until we run out of time. So if you don't have a specific question, you can bring up a topic in general, like what was it like designing certain captains like Hamlet or whatever. You can also define scope. So on the question sheet, you'll see a thing with AC company and game design product. You just draw a little X or a circle with how big or small you want my scope to be when I talk. If you have questions about how to ask questions, you can ask a question while we play. Everyone looks ready? Okay. Everyone, close your eyes. Hamlet, open your eyes. Select a player to be your target by placing a blood token into the hand of any other player, and then close your eyes. You have 3 seconds to complete this action. 3, 2, 1. Everyone, put your hand down. If you were given the blood token, hide it somewhere safe while keeping your eyes closed. Keep this out of the game. 3, 2, 1. Everyone's hands are down? Not everyone's hands are down yet. Make sure everyone puts their hands down. That's okay. Cordelia, open your eyes. Place a blue loyalty token in front of any other player, and then close your eyes. Cordelia, place a blue loyalty token in front of any other player, then close your eyes. If it's yourself, you immediately lose. 3, 2, 1. Brutus, open your eyes. Place a blue loyalty token in front of any other player, and then close your eyes. 3, 2, 1. Everyone, open your eyes. It is time to begin. Choose a player to go first, they will be taking their auto charge energy from the round counter, and then play will go clockwise forever.
I feel like I'm missing something, but I'll barrage you anyway.
Okay, I am dead, and
Unless someone
I
wants to
have
shield you.
the, anyone want to shield me? No? Okay.
No, I think I... I'm trying to think, like, what he could be trying to kill you because he's Hamlet.
Or is there another, like, if you murder, you die kind of thing? If you
I can't see. I feel like I'm gonna shield you.
And I'm gonna charge up.
I was waiting that.
There's too much energy going around.
Okay,
People should start killing you.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Eyes open. Oh! Two loyalties.
So we've got Brutus and Quincy. We'll have to figure out who's who.
So if one of us starts dying.
Yeah, we'll know which one it is. So wait, if Cordelia marks Brutus, and then Brutus marks Cordelia, and Brutus kills Cordelia, they both win. In this weird way of like...
That, what? Oh, that is weird.
I like how quickly we all banded together to kill her, and then we immediately just the trust just fell apart.
I overcharge and then I do this.
Oh my god. Okay, now we're gonna kill.
Kill me now! What money do you have?
I take 1. Also,
I knew it was so.
I knew you didn't have a shield.
Drive this up to 2
I'm
energy.
so sad. I know.
Okay, well, here's the barrage, and here's the Brutus.
Like you look through it.
I just realized how much power I have over you, Victor. Because I can just be calling people left and right on the things they do. No, that's a good idea. I don't have to barrage you. You're not really. What? No,
Brush her.
So if everyone.
Yeah, it would be as soon as it begins. It's not even on that.
you don't have barrage.
Why wouldn't she just straight?
He called it.
Yes. That is so good. Like, he's like, you have to barrage.
If she has barrage and he has strength, it's fine. What did he have to barrage?
He didn't have to.
I meant you have to.
You found your way here, which is amazing because we are tucked away in a small little spot on campus, but it is an excellent space filled with games and other resources, 3D printer, virtual reality. We're mainly for graduate students at the University of Waterloo, though there are some exceptions to that, including the Game Development Club, which is here in the space, folks who come to do research assistantships. So the reason that we are the Games Institute is because we specialize in research about games, whether they be video games or board games, as well as interactive technologies like the virtual reality, 3D printing, that type of stuff that I've mentioned before. And we are one of the university's 8 faculty-level research centers, university-level research centers, which means that we don't actually belong to any one of the faculties. We are completely interdisciplinary. So at any given point in time, you might be interacting with an English student or a computer science student, systems design engineering, you name it, we have it. And if we don't yet, then we want you here. So I'm Marisa Benjamin, as I said before. I've gotten a chance to meet all of you by now. If you still have questions, make sure to find one of us. I do research communications around here, which means that I get to speak at the front of a room when we have events like this. And we also produce the research podcast called Games Institute Podcast. So if you want to learn more, check that out on iTunes and Spotify. I'm a master's student in the Experimental Digital Media program at UW, with a primary area of interest involving the reapplication of design principles from one field to another, such as game design into pedagogy or literary theory into game design. Hobbies include spending time with friends, playing games, designing games, and drawing. So I borrowed this bio off of the Games Institute website, and there's also a quote here. So I'm going to read the quote from you, and then if you want to add to it, feel free. So from AC, I'm researching the expressiveness of interactive systems. Specifically, I seek to highlight and improve the way systems, like games, convey emotion or narrative through their mechanics, end quote. This talk that AC is going to give us today will relate to Captain's Gambit, but I've given them complete free reign to talk about any of their activities outside of that, because AC is also involved in projects such as Energize, which is to design a game as an educational tool to teach kids in KW about what it means to sustain energy, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 80%, so sustainable energy educational tool. They've also been involved in a lot of projects like RETFIGs, which was compiling a database of rhetorical figures. And they have been collecting questions from you throughout this entire thing. So this talk is basically our opportunity to learn about that wonderful game that we just played. Thank you, AC. Hi.
Hi, so the talk will basically be me answering your questions and then elaborating. And then when we only have a few minutes left, someone in the back will raise their hand and then I'll start wrapping up. Okay, so let's choose one at random. So the first question is, at what point did you begin to assign values to things? For example, strike costing 3 energy. So at first, we made everything cost 3 energy. And then from there, we basically did a ton of play testing. Our solutions for almost everything we have designed is to play test, see where people feel the happiest and saddest, and then adjust from there. We found that adjusting way too far in another direction is better than small tweaks. With small tweaks, you can't really tell if what you did is making a difference or not. So overall, a big part of our design process for Captain's Gambit was trying to make big changes and then just listening and letting ourselves have bad versions on purpose so we could figure out what the solution could be. So for strike, for example, we found that some people didn't like that it was 3 energy for 2 damage. So we tried some other things. We tried making it 2 energy, but the problem was it was too difficult for players to stay alive, specifically because you get 1 energy every turn. And we found that the strikes per game in total was a little bit too high. People didn't want to barrage. And then it made pacifist captains lose more often. And it was this whole domino kind of effect. It's kind of weird. There is a related question, which I'll talk about, which was, what is your favorite simple action? Mine is actually strike. What I find most interesting about strike is it is the only simple action that I definitely would do over a permit action in a lot of cases. So what's interesting about this type of design and what it means for a game like Captain's Gambit is mechanically, strike looks strictly better. It deals more damage, right? The problem is you need to think about the social implications of pretty much everything you're designing, including, for example, strike and barrage. If you barrage somebody, they will definitely want revenge, whereas with strike, if you strike someone, they might say, oh, they just want blood. They just want to poke, that kind of thing. And I think it's really interesting choosing to strike someone even if you have barrage, because you need that blood or that damage, but you don't want to bring attention to yourself. We found designing for situations like that, where you have to consider the social implications of all your stuff, to be really interesting. Network is one of my favorite permit actions because that also speaks to some social element. Network is kind of an empty action a lot of the time, in the sense that if you can bluff your permits, kind of who cares what permits you have? Of course, it does matter if you're shy, but also the secret power of network is that nobody will pay attention to you if you do that action. So part of designing Captain's Gambit involved a lot of number crunching, but also a lot of paying attention to how people behaved with each other and how their opinions of each other shifted throughout the game. I found even when applying this to my other games like Energize, looking at the social implications of everyone's action was sometimes more important than the literal mechanics, just because after the game, the mechanics are gone, but the social interactions were still there. All right, next question. Why did you make drains? They are bad. I agree. So for the first 3 years of game development, I hated Drain and I wanted it to leave. And I was outvoted because there was 4 of us. I was outvoted basically every time. And The reason why I hated Drain, and a lot of people did, the original version was steal 2 energy from target player, blocked by Drain and Network. Now it's Shield, and now Drain has a condition. So what was interestingly awful about the original Drain was that one player would Drain. If they don't declare that they have a Network or a Drain to block it, then every other player around the table is basically free to go, oh, I'll drain you too. Oh, I'll drain you too. And then for an entire game, someone would just be stuck with 0 energy getting drained, and it was the worst. So we had to retool Drain for about 3 years. What was interesting about the Drain story is that removing Drain was worse. Drain has a key function in stopping Prospero specifically. But Mitchell also made a really cool argument that in a game like Captain's Gambit, barrage and strikes and dealing damage in general shouldn't be the only way to stop somebody that you don't like or that you want to slow down. Drain gives you technically a way to slow someone down by taking their energy. It basically makes them lose 1 round. Same thing if you barrage somebody and then they fortify. So what Drain represented for the entire game holistically was the ability to mess around with each other without pure violence. And we found that for the overall tone of the game and the strategies people would deploy, we actually really needed Drain. We kind of came up with a solution 2 years ago that I'm going to talk about because it was perfect technically, but not socially. How this version worked was drain 2 energy from target captain. That captain gains a Drain Protection token. The Drain Protection token said, at the start of your turn, if your auto charge brings you to 4 or more energy, discard this token. Technically, it worked perfectly because it stopped everyone from ganging up on one captain, but it also stopped one captain from just gathering a ton of energy. Everything worked, but it was so complicated. I'm sure a few of you didn't even know what I was saying when I was describing the token. We found that when designing games, it wasn't enough to just make it mechanically work, because the genre of the game we had necessitated that we made things simple and streamlined. So the perfect solution actually wasn't very good at all. So we had to spend another 2 years figuring out how to make Drain kind of work. The solution we have now lets a player skip, basically makes a player skip their next turn, but not the current turn. And that's all I need to say about Drain. I don't like Drain either, but it is there. What's something I wouldn't have seen about the dev process? So, the main hidden part about the game dev process is a lot of arguments about balance and mechanics and meetings about the balance and mechanics and captain design. The product itself, the marketing and logistics and all of that stuff, at this point has probably taken up 50% of the time, maybe 60%, with design kind of falling back for the past year or two. So one thing that you might not see about the dev process outside of just discussing mechanics is a lot of very small debates over what is optimal for the players to learn, what is the most balanced, what's easiest for us to design, what can literally fit on a captain card. A whole bunch of very small things that you might not notice matters. One thing that really surprised me was you need to make the text fit on a physical card. It's not enough to just make a cool mechanic. Magic the Gathering runs into that problem a whole lot too, actually. Turns out for Magic the Gathering cards, there's a specific team of people who make sure that the line breaks are proper and you don't get rivers of white in between words, which is a really, I never considered it, but these types of things really matter when designing cards that you actually want to publish once you're moving past the prototype stage. How have you handled marketing? Oh, you know. So this question says online, in person, networks, paid ads, that kind of thing. So as a company, we basically tried to do everything. We only recently started doing paid ads, but it required a lot of research to know what ads people like, what ads people go for. There's a difference between getting a lot of people to click versus getting high conversion. Sometimes they don't correlate all the time, mostly clickbait, if you make an ad too clickbaity. A lot of the process of figuring out our ads was basically cheating and looking at what everyone else was doing and trying to copy, and then realizing where you could differentiate and be your own kind of person with it. I've found, we've done some Facebook analytics. We found the best ads were the ones where I kind of wrote what I wanted instead of writing what I felt I was supposed to do. So that was a kind of weird, but nice, maybe proof that being genuine is what matters. So that was kind of nice to see. In terms of in-person networks, I made a really conscious, strong point to not be like that one person who brings up their startup to everyone they talk to. And I felt kind of weird using people to market. But I actually really like this game. So if people want to play a game, then I'll talk about it. So my in-person marketing was mostly to not market, but be nice in a wholesome sense. So that was kind of my approach with that. On a company level, it was a lot of the paid ads being nice to people in general, and talking to stores and asking what it would take to be liked, more or less. We found that so far people just kind of naturally, organically become attracted to the game if you let them, and are less so if you just try to force people to play. Ooh, how did you design the physical cards? It took time. I should pull some up. So the physical card design was a lot of testing. We looked at a whole bunch of different formats for cards. And we basically did a play test with every possible version of a card, like permit cards with text, without text, because you technically don't look at the permit card, right? We tried energy costs in the corner, in the center, in the top. The answer to this, like a lot of things, was basically we had to play test everything a lot over and over, and then we had to look at people's reactions as they did stuff. A lot of the times when you're play testing, people give feedback, which is fine. They give suggestions, which is okay, but their emotional reactions in the moment, that never lies, and you can always get really good info by paying attention to how people are feeling whenever something happens. For example, with Drain, we had a problem where everything was too dark, and we had people and they kind of frown after, which is not where we want to be. We have to retool everything based on people's all those little reactions over time. Obviously that's for mechanics, but that also applied to little things like card design. I would show people cards, other designers, friends, that kind of thing, asking for advice. And people tend to make a certain face before they say their words. So regardless of what people say, you can kind of tell which type of design is working and what isn't. So the printing of the cards, those literal cards was the Games Institute printer. We've also done in the past going to University Plaza. There was a printing place that closed, which is sad. But we basically had to shell out a lot of money every few months to reprint an entire set of games and test out the cards on good card stock and things like that. It was expensive and bad, and I don't super recommend it. One lesson I have learned is if you think your game is ready, well, it's not, but do one step up before you try to go for a full-blown production version. Smaller incremental steps for price for games is definitely worth it. Paper prototypes, forget art until way later, that kind of thing. Yeah. Who did the art? Oh, that was Bo Moore. Let's see if I can connect to this. So Bo Moore is my friend and also our artist who did some really, really cool stuff. So basically, when doing Captain's Gambit and looking for the artist, I really wanted to have an artist style that drew aliens a bit weirder. I don't really like the Mass Effect alien designs that much because they're basically humans but with horns sometimes. And so I wanted to kind of push the limits on what an alien could look like. With player feedback, we eventually went a little bit back to humanoids. I believe most captains have eyes, but I think Rosalind and Prospero arguably. But basically we chose Bo because we knew that Bo would do something really interesting with the designs of what aliens mean and what it means to be a sentient living creature. So that's how we got our art, and that's how we chose our artist. It was like 3-ish years of constant iteration, building captains up from sketches to just solid line art. But every time we upgraded the captains, exponentially more people loved the game. So we just went all out, basically. How does manufacturing work? So I only kind of know this. This is mostly Alvin, Mitchell, and Ethan who did the manufacturing. But essentially, we have a group of people in China called Panda. Panda Manufacturing makes the games. Minimum order is 1,500, which means we need a lot of money, which is why we're doing Kickstarter. In order to do that, so they make the game, but then they get it sent to a fulfillment center. For us, we have Snakes and Lattes in Canada, for example. And then the fulfillment center sends it to individual people. The manufacturing requires that I make a whole bunch of Illustrator files or vector files. Theoretically, images might work. One thing, if you are an artist or you're talking to an artist about getting a game printed, make sure you account for bleed really early and a lot of bleed. Basically, the cutting of the cards is not as nice as you might think, and actually the machines are pretty inaccurate. So we had some trouble where we made the perfect card art and totally forgot about bleed, and it was a giant mess trying to expand the backgrounds, shrink the captains, and make everything look nice within the frames. So another surprise with game design has been small logistic stuff matters more than you want it to. For me, I come from English, and I wanted to stay away from a lot of the mechanical, boring number stuff. But it does turn out somebody has to do it in order for everything to come together. And that includes things like accounting for bleeds, the number of inches that you're allowed to have, thresholds for when your game is in a new weight class and suddenly costs $5 more to ship. Random stuff like that factors in when you're bringing your game from prototype to actual real game. How similar is this final design to your original one? It is very different. So basically, we talked about how Drain has changed a lot over the years. Visually, it's changed a lot as well. And, okay. I don't have any weird memes on here, so I can plug this back in. So the main thing that changed is we made the game a lot more forgiving. For example, Bluff used to be 5 damage, and then 4, and then finally 3 where it stayed. The main things overall that changed with the game was making it less swingy. So whenever you messed up, you had a chance to redeem yourself. This was my original MS Paint captain art. This was made in Lennart's game design class. And so we were just making a prototype, right? So I drew them up kind of half thinking. I wanted each captain to symbolically represent what they actually did in Shakespeare. And this is kind of what we ended up with. They're mostly the same. Hamlet has changed from a slug to a sloth. I just wanted somebody who was slow to act. The question why Shakespeare ties into that.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, can you do an origin story? And this is a great time.
Yeah, sure. So why Shakespeare? For the final project of our class, Lennart, our professor, said, you must make a game with Shakespeare and space. And it was the least cool prompt I've ever heard. So I kind of knew Shakespeare, so I started looking into it. actually working on this game, I actually like Shakespeare now, which is a fun little side effect. But when we decided that we had to basically do Shakespeare in space, we could have done just Hamlet or just Romeo and Juliet. But Mitchell really loved the idea of Smash Bros. And was trying to make a Smash Bros. Board game since like day one of our class. And I like Smash Bros. So we basically tried to do that. Our design process involved sitting in Math 3, I believe, and playing board games for like 2 days straight. And then at the end of that, we basically had a list of what we thought was cool and not. We said, Shakespeare is deception, right? There's always deception in these plays. People are dying all the time. Okay. And then we also wanted Smash Bros. So our solution was to have all captains trying to kill each other, and they all had special powers. Greece, at that time, I had been playing One Night Ultimate Werewolf, and I was obsessed with the Insomniac character. And I can't articulate specifically how, but something about the Insomniac character made me decide that each captain should have a different win condition rather than just a different power. And now we're here. Some captains were designed top-down, where we knew Hamlet had to be in there, so we just made him on the spot. And then I believe Alvin said Romeo and Juliet definitely have to be in the game, and so we tried to design that mechanic. But for someone like Rosalind, for example, Mitchell said, we need a healer. And I said no, but he was right. And so we decided that Rosalind would be the best character to reflect that. Hopefully from playing, it should be all kind of the same, where captains and their mechanics are both similarly linked to each other. Over time, as we tweaked the captains, I was in charge of the lore, we decided that it would be cool if the optimal play pattern reflected the character rather than just the win condition. So basically, we had to try and figure out the character's actual motivations and abilities in the plays. Like, how does Lady Macbeth do her thing in Macbeth? And then we had to try and link that to the mechanics, for example, gathering blood. So if you know the Shakespeare characters, you'll be just a little bit better at the game. Which captains from Shakespeare didn't make the cut? There were a lot. One is Lord Macbeth. We decided we should probably spread out the captains, so we did. Spread out in terms of which plays they were from. We really, really wanted Viola. We were trying out different versions of copying other captains and stealing their win con. But with Romeo and Juliet and Viola and Cordelia, that would never... We do have one secret thing that I think might work, but we're still testing. Viola did not make the cut just because we want her to be really, really cool, and she's not quite cool yet. The main captains that didn't make the cut were captains that accompanied existing captains in the game. For example, Claudius is a bit lower than adding Iago, for example, just because Hamlet is already there. Another captain that didn't make the cut was, who was it? Titus didn't make this cut, though we do have a Titus design that we hope we can kind of finish up. As a play, Titus himself isn't very likable. He's bad. He's a bad guy. But not even in like a good way, he's just bad. So captains that are less popular and less good tend to be a little bit lower. I wish Coriolanus could be in there. I don't know if anyone has read that one, but that's my personal, yeah, I love it. He's a very awful guy. I really like him. But we're still working on the different captains and things like that. So most of our decisions for who makes it in and who doesn't is based on, can we make a mechanic that works? Is this play already represented? And do people want to play this character? For example, Shylock is just out because there's a lot of kind of gross stuff with Shylock's character design. We're just not even touching that. What was the least expected workload? So for the whole product, I did not expect making the trailer to take so much time and energy and effort. The trailer I showed at the beginning was probably the most difficult thing I have done in my life. I think. Maybe black belt testing. But basically, doing the trailer was tough, mostly because I didn't know what I was getting into. I thought we were just making a game. But it turns out making a game is cool, but making a full product involves almost more things than the game itself. Probably still about 51% game. Doing the trailer involved learning how to use the actual program, and it also involved learning what people like, how other trailers work, how to use the absolute most out of your 12 different art assets and take every layer and try and make something work out of that. Who is your favorite captain? Prospero, I think. Also, Rosalind. So Prospero is my favorite because there's almost an infinite number of ways you could win. For example, I've seen a Prospero just network until he got 2 barrages, and then he knew that no one could kill him when he revealed. I've seen a Prospero, just overcharge and win, that's fine. I've seen a Prospero kill everyone, and then in monologue mode, just overcharge by himself, reveal, and leave. I think I really like the characters that let you do the maximum number of different strategies. We've tried to design each character so that you could do at least 3 different plays, and with at least 3 different permits as your primary strategy, but Prospero is definitely up there. Very fun.
What about also Rosalind?
Oh yeah, Rosalind is cool because I like the flip effect. What I like about Rosalind is she's the only actual healer pacifist, but I secretly like her because it makes everyone else super aggressive. We've been dealing with this problem for years where everyone was so nice to each other and just overcharging by themselves, and then Prospero wins. Not a good cycle. So we've always been trying to find ways to make people more aggressive. One of them is, if you look at the Fortify versus Barrage, attacking versus healing, attacking always wins in the end. That was one of our mechanics. But Rosalind, because you want to stop her, you have to fight. So one healer condenses all niceness into one person and makes everything else bloodier. I didn't realize it until we tried it, but I think playtesting continues to be the best way to do anything at all. Just play a ton of games all the time. Are you going to reduce the price of Strike? No. Who did the card art? Oh, Bo, okay. Recommended player size, I would say, is 5 for your first time playing, and then any number afterwards. I like 7 because I really like Rosalind, and Richard is difficult but really cool as well, just to bring in more captains. This question is asking about strangers versus friends. Typically, we found an interesting pattern in playtesting where strangers tend to be, they tell the truth, but they call a lot of bluffs for the first game. Second game, everyone's bluffing and then not calling out other people, and then third is normal. The realization we had from this pattern is we can't do knee-jerk reactions to people's feedback after one game because it's all affected by the learning process. To actually get really good feedback, you need people to play the same game a whole bunch of times. And it's easy to fall into a trap of someone giving really strong feedback and being like, okay, I'm gonna change. Play a few games, it might help you see the true problem behind the problem. So playing with a variety of people, including strangers who become friends or friends who become strangers maybe, it's really helpful for finding out which parts of the mechanics are just social and which parts are embedded in the game. I think I'm done talking. Thanks.
First one. Okay, it's beautiful. There's a lovely cake. Probably one of the kind.
You should hold the cake.
It's probably one of the kind that Agata likes.
No, it's not.
Okay, good.
This is the executive director of the Games Institute.
Hi, folks.
Randall.
Welcome. Thanks for coming. Honest, I wanted to be here. I couldn't. Okay. Okay, so you don't have to hold this. Don't put it down.